The smartest person in the room is often the one who looks the least certain, because intelligence isn't always about having the answer. Sometimes it's about knowing exactly why you might be wrong. And that creates a strange kind of mind, one that keeps questioning, even when everyone else has already decided. Here are 10 psychological patterns that often appear in people with unusually strong cognitive ability. And the 10th one might explain why intelligent people can sometimes feel completely out of place. First, they are intensely curious about things other people barely notice. A simple question can send their mind down 5 different paths before the conversation has even ended. They don't just want to know what happened, they want to understand why it happened. And once they find an answer, another question usually appears behind it. Second, they don't automatically trust assumptions just because everyone around them does. They notice contradictions, missing information, and the tiny details that don't quite fit. This can make them look difficult when they're actually trying to understand the full picture. But here's the catch. Constantly questioning your own assumptions can make certainty feel strangely uncomfortable. Third, complicated problems can feel more interesting to them than simple ones. While most people search for the fastest answer, they may become fascinated by the structure underneath the problem. They can sit with an unfinished idea for a long time without needing to immediately close the loop. Their mind is comfortable exploring possibilities before choosing a conclusion. Fourth, they can be surprisingly comfortable saying, "I don't know." That isn't weakness. It reflects an awareness of how much there is left to learn. Someone with strong reasoning skills understands that confidence and certainty are not the same thing. So instead of protecting their ego with an answer, they may protect the truth by admitting uncertainty. Fifth, they often learn by connecting new information to things they already understand. Give them one useful idea, and they may immediately start building a mental network around it. That's why they can sometimes become interested in completely different subjects and still find surprising connections between them. Their advantage isn't necessarily knowing everything, it's knowing how to learn. Sixth, they may pause before answering instead of rushing to fill the silence. Their brain is often comparing possibilities, checking assumptions, and choosing the most accurate response. From the outside, that pause can look like hesitation, but sometimes silence is simply what thinking looks like when you can see more than one possible answer. Seventh, they tend to notice patterns connecting things that seem unrelated. A conversation, a behavior, a mistake, and an old memory can suddenly become pieces of the same puzzle. This pattern recognition can make their thinking feel several steps ahead of the conversation, and sometimes they struggle to explain the connection because they saw the pattern before they found the words. Eighth, they can change their mind when better evidence appears. That sounds simple, but emotionally it requires something difficult, choosing truth over the need to be right. They may defend an idea strongly one day and abandon it the next when the evidence changes, because for them, changing their mind isn't always losing. Sometimes it's upgrading the model in their head. Ninth, they often need periods of solitude to think, process, and reset. Too much noise, constant conversation, or endless stimulation can make their mind feel crowded. And that can be misunderstood as being distant, antisocial, or uninterested in people. But the 10th sign goes deeper. They may frequently feel like their mind operates on a slightly different wavelength. They can become frustrated when something feels obvious to them but takes much longer to explain to someone else. They may also feel lonely when their interests, questions, or way of thinking don't match the people around them. And this is where intelligence can become complicated, because being able to think deeply doesn't automatically make life feel easier. Sometimes it means noticing more contradictions, imagining more possibilities, and having more questions than answers. So if you recognized yourself in several of these signs, don't use them as proof that you're smarter than everyone else. Use them as an invitation to understand how your mind works, because perhaps the clearest sign of intelligence isn't how quickly you find an answer. It's how honestly you're willing to keep searching after you realize the answer might be wrong. And maybe that's why the smartest person in the room can look uncertain, because they're still curious enough to know there's more to discover. And if you want to understand your mind a little better, subscribe to Quiet Alignment. There's always more beneath the surface.